Good evening. Welcome to the August 1st Village Board regular meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Bazemore, Trustee Herrera,
Present.
Trustee Codman,
Present.
Trustee Levin,
Present.
and Mayor Garrity.
Present.
Okay, first we have mayor's and trustees announcements.
Yes, I'm sure there are calendaring events. The one that I will call to folks' attention is Friday evening, I suppose weather permitting, is the Firefighters Parade. It's an annual event, always well attended by the community. Our department will be out in force, as will a number of visiting departments who will be competing for a prize, and they have the great privilege of competing without the Ossining Fire Department being in the competition because we are the hosts. So that's very exciting for all of the visitors, and we look forward to seeing them. On Friday, the parade begins on Upper Croton at 7 p.m. and winds down Croton Avenue, Main Street, and Secor Road down to the waterfront. I know some of my colleagues are also going to comment on some concerns regarding Con Edison. We've certainly talked a lot about Con Edison, not just this year, but quite a bit this winter with the significant power outages. And that resulted in many, many meetings, lots of outcries for executives to be replaced or unseated, and lots of meetings with local elected officials and senior folks at the utility companies, for us, particularly Con Edison. And as frustrating as we are, particularly overall, you see in the community, it seems every time we pave a street, suddenly it's dug up again, despite the fact that we try very hard to communicate with Con Edison all year, every year before we do the paving. Right now we're seeing what's happening in Briarcliff with Pleasantville Road. We've certainly had our fair share here in the village of brand new streets being torn up and gas lines being put in. I will say, calling for the resignation of any particular individuals is not going to be effective in addressing the concern. It's a systemic problem, and much bigger than Con Edison or Ossining. In an effort to keep costs down, there's been a significant amount of deregulation. That's part of our system. And Con Edison is a for-profit business that is empowered by New York State to be our one and only company that provides us with electricity and gas. And that leads us to a particular challenge that we're experiencing here. 25 families in particular are experiencing for more than a week now in the village of Ossining. There is a building with 25 units on South Highland Avenue that has not had gas. That means no hot water and no stoves for many, many days now. And despite diligent efforts by village staff to work with the building owner and Con Edison to ensure that we are on the scene, helping out with any inspections and approvals and coordination of efforts between the building owner, his plumber, and Con Edison. It has been, there has not been adequate communication or progress. And I say thank you to all of the village staff who have been doing the follow-up and keeping all of us apprised of the progress or lack thereof. We, on the other hand, have continued to get more and more frustrated, though no one's likely as frustrated as all of the families who have not had gas for many days. So today I did reach out to the Con Ed liaison. It's her job to deal with chief elected officials, and sometimes that is effective. After a series of phone calls between myself and her, getting detailed updates from village staff, from our building inspector, and from the Con Edison engineer. She got up to date. I learned a little bit about how plumbing works, and we may have some significant progress. So the best case scenario for now, for folks who live at the building that's been affected on South Highland, the plumber that has been hired by the building owner is going to be doing trench work tomorrow. Hopefully that trench work can be completed in one day, and they will notify Con Edison of when it can be completed. Con Edison will be taking on work that is in part their responsibility as the public utility, and then also because they're a private company, they can be hired to do the work. So the building owner has asked them to do the engineering and survey work and tell them what the cost would be for Con Edison to take that on as the professional plumber as well. And it is our hope that the trench work will be done on Thursday. The work for the building will be done on Friday. Theoretically, it may be done in time for the building to have hot water over the weekend. I will say, for the folks who live there and don't care about the breakdown of communication and the nitty-gritty back and forth, that's what we thought was going to happen last week. So the frustration level is obviously very high. I will say I am cautiously optimistic that after quite a lot of back and forth, there is some better understanding among all parties, particularly those who can be helpful in moving this forward a little more quickly than we've been seeing. So hopefully that is the case. With that, I will open up the conversation to any of my colleagues who may also want to comment on our experience with Con Edison or with this particular. I know that we may have some opportunities for how we may be able to help the tenants with some of our, with the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council, or what other efforts we may be able to undertake as soon as the immediate concern is addressed. Rodman, did you want to comment on this?
Yes, please. Yeah, I sent a note to my colleagues and to the staff this morning, and I've really had it. You know, Con Ed runs around and they dig up all parts of the village roads, and then they run away for 2 weeks, and then they come back and they do a little bit. And if you look on Camp Woods, you know, all of one side of the road is now all dug up. And now, today, when I drove there, the other side of the road is being dug up. So, you know, there's definitely a systemic problem with the way that they're executing their plans, their lack of communication with all their customers. You know, nobody's getting notified. Nobody gets told anything. They show up with their excavators and they just dig things up. The mayor already mentioned the situation in Briarcliff, where they put in brand new curbs and all this other stuff. 2 weeks later, it gets torn up. And frankly, you know, a lot of this speaks to, you know, many, and deservedly so, complaints about, you know, village roads and our difficulty in doing any repairs, because the last thing that we want to do is spend the taxpayers' hard-earned money and then 2 weeks later have it dug up. You know, I mean, honestly. But at the same time, you know, this is going on for months and even years now, where this is a problem. And Con Ed has been late to the game in repairing an aging infrastructure, and it's very troubling. You know, I would recommend that you call the Public Service Commission, because it seems to me that they're the ones that sit on top of Con Edison, and I would call the Public Service Commission, and I would make a complaint to them and say that Con Ed has got to step up. They've got to step up their communication. They've got to step up their communication with their vendors and contractors that are working, and they certainly need to work with the municipalities that they're working in, and let us know what's going on. And the contractors are sloppy. They're not cleaning up after their work. There's all kinds of gravel and stuff all over the place. I know Trustee Levin was talking to me about that situation, and that's just unsafe. You know, when they perform those tasks, they should be cleaning up every day, and there shouldn't be gravel and stuff all over the place. I mean, you wouldn't expect that from the village to do that work. You know, you'd be upset with us if the village did that. And I'm happy to say that for the most part, we do clean up this stuff after we do our work. And we're not asking anything of anybody that we wouldn't ask of our own municipal workers and our own people. So I would hope that we could move this up the chain. I think we need to talk to the county. I think we need to talk to our state elected officials and talk about how we can improve the process, because this ain't working. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to comment?
Sure. So I just, before I get into Con Ed, because I think that my colleagues have pretty much summed up how much we feel about Con Ed and how we feel about Con Ed, but I wanted to take the time to due to Con Ed's constant challenge in communicating with their customers, I'm very grateful that we had our senior staff, our building department, the mayor, our Con Ed liaison, be able to provide information as to what exactly is going on the property. Otherwise, they wouldn't have known. So thank you all. I, during my day job with the county, along with Mayor Garrity and other electeds, this past winter, we learned a lot about Con Ed and their internal functions, their challenges, and one thing that came up out of the analysis and audit and hearings and Board of Legislators discussions was that we still don't understand what their communication strategy is in general. When it comes to whether it is a winter storm, whether it comes to an emergency on the street out of nowhere, and they kind of pledged that they're going to work together not only with the county but throughout the state to come up with a better plan. So I just want to thank Building Department, Joe, Debbie, Mayor Garrity, our liaison, and to John's point, bigger picture, I do think that we should pick up on the momentum as to calling out the Public Service Commission and reaching out to our state reps and making it clear that even though we're a village and to them it may not be a big deal because they kind of view things as if you're a city or what's by you, to me, it does not matter where you are. You should be operating in a safe and appropriate manner, in a timely manner. People are paying for these services, and unfortunately, the PSC is known to allow Con Ed and utilities to operate this way. That's why they do every day. So, thank you.
I think my colleagues have said it all, but I do want to differentiate for me. There is a difference between the protocols that utilities are supposed to put in place for emergencies and protocols that they're supposed to have for everyday events. I mean, they send all these subcontractors out to work, so they must have a plan in place about where work will be done, when it will be done. They may not know all the time when it's finished. Emergencies, I can appreciate, and I know after this winter there were a lot of meetings, county level, but for me, it's inexcusable that regular ongoing work is not communicated to local municipalities about when, where, how, and when it's supposed to be completed. It's unreasonable. They function like a monopoly, and I really think that there has to be a greater push to communicate with municipalities and, frankly, their clients. It doesn't feel like they behave that way. So I'm all for the fact that it's a very complicated animal when it comes to emergencies and snowstorms. I find it inexcusable and shameful from their senior management on down to all of their subcontractors that they don't have protocols in place about everyday road involvement and infrastructure involvement. To me, that's ridiculous. There are utility companies all over the world, and this is not a new idea. So I really think we need to start thinking about more than communicating with Con Ed about protocols to actually see some action from them. And while I agree with the mayor that asking for people to resign is not a solution, because I actually don't know who would replace that person and if they're any better at what they're doing, but an agreement that this is just a really poor way to behave with the public and with consumers, to me, is gone beyond the pale. It's ridiculous. We're now not just talking about Con Ed, right? You asked for announcements. Did you have any?
Oh, I did.
I have one, so I don't know if you had any. That's why.
I did. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
so
it.
I'm going to let you do that because
just have
I think
two.
we sort of went on one topic, but we forgot the topic.
Sorry about
we're in.
that. Got so caught up on this case. So Shadowmack Yacht Club has their annual plein air paint out and auction. Pretty nice event. Local artist creates some pretty lovely art that's available for purchase, and the funds go to the youth program there. I believe it's the sailing club. So that is this Saturday, August 4th. The preview is at 3 p.m. and the auction is at 5 p.m. And then my other announcement is, I just had it up here. The Chamber's 4th Annual Lobster Fest has been rescheduled to Saturday, believe it or not, September 8th. It is soon, 6 at 10 p.m. and tickets are available at ossiningschamber.org. And they have a pretty cool space. It's the Sing Sing UWL facility, which is right on the banks of the water. It's pretty nice. And for tickets, you can call 941-0009.
Oh, sorry. So, two announcements. Number one, I met earlier this evening with the Landlord Tenant Committee. I just want to do a shout out. They are also, I'm not going to mention Con Ed again. It's one of the things they're dealing with is how do you help both the tenants and the landlord in this scenario, which I thought was pretty cool that they're looking at it. But just wanted to give a shout out that if you have issues, please feel free. There are complaint forms, right, Jamie, right on the website in what section? Under their landlord tenant committee, right? Okay. So just encouraging people. They are looking at a number of cases, so definitely people are hearing about them. Secondly, I've got to put my glasses on. This part, Wednesdays, there was one today. I haven't heard back from my contact, but the Ossining Children's Center is seeking volunteers to assist the children. They have a community garden. So there are organizations that are involved with that, and it's this Wednesday. Today it happened, but I think the rain may have stopped it. And again on August 22nd. Need more information, contact Ossining Children's Center. You can also contact me at Levin at villageofossining.org because there are a number of volunteer opportunities for folks. I'm only talking about the one in Ossining, but they're actually looking for people in other parts of the county. Thanks.
Did you have any more announcements, Trustee Coe? Okay, then I will also. Saturday, August 4th, either before or after, you are at the plein air auction, which is really a wonderful event. I have some beautiful art from past years. Head on over to Nelson Park if you have kids or if you are a kid. There is going to be from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. There will be a day of fitness, fun, food, and more. That's this Saturday, August 4th. It looks like there's cops and kids kickball, so maybe the chief knows something about that. There's a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. There's soccer skills challenge. There'll be music, food, tug of war. Everything is free to the public, and this is being organized by the folks who are on the board of My Brother's Keeper, which is a relatively new organization that's being coordinated in our community. It's a youth outreach, and everyone in the community is invited to come this Saturday, August 4th, to Nelson Park for all kinds of fun activities. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay,
We're good
next
here.
we have an administrative report from Village Manager Deborah McDonald.
Thank you. I do want to give a shout out to Joe for all the work that he has done in the building department on this gas issue, and also Stuart, because both of them have worked very hard to communicate with the residents. Stuart's spent a lot of time talking with them on the phone and giving them information. And I just got this very nice thank you from Thruway Plumbing, who's doing the internal plumbing for all the apartments. And it says here, I just felt I needed to let you know that Joe A., the inspector, I thought that was great, has been amazing in helping us to move a quick resolution to this dilemma. He's agreed to come on Saturdays, in the evenings, I mean, whatever it's going to take to get these residents back up and running. So I really wanted to give him a shout out because that's pretty special for him to do that for them. And the company's very appreciative. I will tell you that we, our team, and I call it our team, we finished submitting our 8th grant this summer we now have 8 grants that are pending for a little over $13 million. And we are looking to advance our economic strategy, and I think that if we're able to secure some of these things, we can see some improvements to Croton Avenue, and we can see some sidewalk improvements and linkages and some improvements to our community center and various things that will begin the economic revitalization process for us. So keep your fingers crossed, and we'll wait to hear. So we will hear on 1 grant hopefully in August. We will hear on 4 additional ones in January, and then 3 that we've submitted. I have no idea when we'll hear, but we've submitted them. So I just want everybody to know that we're working hard to try to find other people's money to help us leverage the monies that we have here to make ourselves
Other people's
better,
money.
other people's money. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, next, an administrative report from Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. There are a number of resolutions on tonight for public hearings regarding proposed local laws. Rather than go through it now, when we get to each one of those, I'll be more than happy to just give a little blurb on that. Debbie and I did today get a very nice report from Tom Warren regarding an accounting that we got from the Office of Court Administration and our collection of fines and other penalties for the village is significantly ahead of last year, both in terms of building code and parking. Building code, there have been some significant fines that have not only been assessed but have been paid, and as well as the fines that relate to garbage on streets and things like that. So that's the thanks to the building department and to my deputy, who is much tougher than I am on some of these and is able to get those fines. And as I said, it's important that the court assess the fine, but it's particularly important that the fines get paid. And we've recently gotten some nice 5-figure fines paid to the court and then coming into the village. And those have been reflected on recent accounts that we've gotten from the Office of Court Administration.
That's all very good news. Thank you very much for the update to the sanitation code and for that law that we worked on a while ago actually now taking effect in our streets and such. And nice shout out to Sonia Tanksley. We're delighted to have her on as our project. Glad it's going so well. Let me just say, this is a voice that we haven't had in village board meetings before, and before the chief makes his remarks. Welcome to Victoria Caffarelli, our new acting clerk. Town Village acting clerk now. We're pleased to have you aboard. Victoria is an Ossining resident. She has been working now for at least a couple of years with town government and has done some really terrific work. I've had an opportunity to partner with her on some grant applications, and she's been such an asset to town government. I'm pleased to have her stepping in, at least in this interim basis. And our best wishes, friend Marianne Roberts, as she is recovering from some health challenges. I hear there is some positive progress, and I'm very pleased to hear that, and I hope that it continues. We look. Meanwhile, welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay. So next we have an administrative report from Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. Summer activities are continuing. Over the last couple of weeks, we've participated with the Ossining School District Action Committee as well as Ossining Basics Committee to do some booking, which different from the booking that we normally do here. This was delivering books to people. So it's a great program. If anybody did get books from us, there's a letter inside just to make people familiar with it. We deliver books to the homes of local children. Inside that, there's a letter that asks them to read the books and read them with their family and discuss the books. And then they pass them on to a friend. So we were lucky to actually get to meet with a lot of the kids. Sometimes we just leave them on the door. So the rule is you've got to read the book, and when you see the police officers later, you got to tell them about it. So that's an exciting program for us, first time to get to do that, and we're glad to partner with the school on that. We also, over the last couple of weeks, have been helping the Action Committee with packing book bags of donated materials that we had collected earlier in the summer. So we've got a couple officers working on that program. We're looking forward to getting those distributed before the school year starts. Last week, we had Cops and Kids Soccer, which turned out to be a raging success and quite the competitive game, both for the kids and the parents on the sideline, I understand. We're glad for everybody's good behavior there. Mm-hmm. For training this month, we have 2 officers right now in Oriskany at Drone Pilot School in order to further our initiative of attempting to secure a drone at some point. There is training that the state offers for to officially make you a pilot, which is a topic of discussion because you don't actually get to go off the ground, but we'll leave that to the cops to fight about. Other instruction we've gone through this week, we had one supervisor head down to New Jersey for less lethal instructor training, which is a whole host of devices that we use outside of obviously deadly physical force in order to help us make arrests without inflicting serious damage. Stuff coming up Friday night, we have the fire department parade. We'll be putting out messaging tomorrow morning as far as the parade route and traffic patterns. That starts at 7 and usually takes an hour or 2. There'll be breaks in it, so we don't expect major traffic, but we'll give people options for how to avoid the parade if you choose to go around it. Our best suggestion is to grab a chair, pop a squat, and enjoy the show. On Saturday, we've got 2 events. In the morning, we have Coffee with the Cop at the Farmers Market. And then in the afternoon, we'll be working with Project 105. That's a great event. A couple of our officers here have been helping with the My Brother's Keeper initiative. And this was a big push from them to get some sporting events out there. I know that Jermaine Smith has a lot to do with some AAU basketball and competitive type stuff. So this is a great opportunity for us to get some FaceTime with that, with those kids. So we'll be down in Nelson Park in the afternoon, and our families will be quite understanding, we hope, as we take the entire day off. 2 more events coming up over the next couple of weeks. We've got 1 sports and 1 movie. We're still watching the weather to see which one's going to fall on which day, so keep an eye on all of our social media for the announcements for those. And as we move into the school year, we're planning some back-to-school stuff, but that'll be announced as we go. That's all for now.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, next we move on to village board resolutions. Any visitors would like to speak on those resolutions? Okay.
You skipped past organizational announcements. I
Oh,
don't know
oh,
that there's
sorry.
anyone here to make an
Okay,
organizational announcement,
That's
but
you. So if anyone has anything to speak on both those, so organizational, village. Oh, yes.
You bet.
Can be, yes.
You bet. Welcome.
Frank Sylvester, 5 Butler Place. On Resolution H, considering the tethering law, I've attended numerous meetings here where the advocates for this tethering law have been very vocal. But personally, as a taxpayer, I've seen no evidence of any abuse to an animal or any reason for forcing a pet owner to tether their dog or not to tether their dog or to be told how to handle their dog. And I was further upset that a number of the people who were speaking were not even local residents. They were people from out of the village coming into our village and dictating to us what you as legislators need to do. I'm an animal lover. I don't want to see any abuse to any type of animal. But I'm also a local taxpayer, paid my taxes yesterday, and good thing I remembered. But we are people who have been here forever and have invested in this community. And I take a little bit of offense to people coming into our community and trying to tell us what we need to do. You are very astute people. You work very hard at what you do. And I get tired of coming here and seeing so much time wasted on frivolous issues. If there was some downright evidence that there is abuse to an animal, I think some legislative matters maybe need to be taken. But I think there are many, many pressing issues in this village where we waste too much time at village meetings dealing with people who are not even local taxpayers, coming in here, wasting valuable time. You people give up a lot of time to do what you're doing, and I applaud you for that. But to waste, I've sat in here for hours and had things go round and round and round with rhetoric. And I think we have more important issues. So I think even considering a public hearing on tethering the dog, where there is absolutely no evidence of any abuse on any animals in the village, I think is another waste of time for our important issues in this community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. So now we go to the first resolution, approval of minutes, July 18th, 2018, regular meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the July 18th, 2018, regular meeting as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Next, approval of voucher detail, August 1st, 2018. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated August 1st, 2018 in the amount of $654,346.55. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board?
Sure. About $255,000 of latest of this recent voucher report, is for street paving for M. Wilton, Rockledge, Lafayette, and Edward Street. And I pray that it stays that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's a good number. I'm glad we're making good use
Spending
of
that
that
money.
funding. Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Next, DPW 5-year maintenance agreement for village generators. Resolve that the village manager is authorized to execute a 5-year planned maintenance agreement with Cummins, Inc., 890 Zarega Avenue, Bronx, New York, 10473-1122, for an amount not to exceed $48,290.37 to perform scheduled preventative maintenance services on village generators located at the John Paul Rodriguez Ossining Operations Center, the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center, the Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant, and the Pleasantville Road Pump Station. Said agreement services and pricing per Sourcewell NJPA contract number 120617-CMM, subject to review and approval of said agreement by Corporation Council. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Comments from the board? I'll just comment. Having these generators is something that the village has invested in, and it's a very proactive way for us to provide some protection for our community in the wake of major storms. The Indian Brook Water Facility, not only is it next to the reservoir that we have, but it filters all the water, both from our reservoir and from New York City. And if there were to be an extended power outage for that building, then what would we do about our water? It's an essential service, and that's one good example. The one at the community center. The community center is our emergency shelter location should there be a major outage for a good portion of our community. These are really important public facilities, and so I'm grateful for the proactive action. Some of us have been a part of some of these investments, and it's just sort of an ongoing philosophy that village government has to be mindful of how important it is to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Madam Clerk?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Next, call for public hearing, proposed local law 5 of 2018, amending Chapter 162, Housing, Property Maintenance, and Building Code Administration of the Village of Ossining Code at Article 7, Commercial Occupancy, Article 8, Vacant Building Registry, Article 9, Outdoor Signs, Article 10, Transfer of Ownership, Article 11, Residential Occupancy Restrictions, and additional technical amendments to include Director of Code Enforcement. Resolved that the Board of the Trustees hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, on September 5th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 5 of 2018, amending Chapter 162, Housing, Property Maintenance, and Building Code Administration of the Village of Ossining Code. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? I'll just point out to folks that take note of the date. We have 5 public hearings that we're calling for, and they are spread over 3 different dates. This is the only one that is happening on September 5th, which will be the Wednesday right after Labor Day weekend. It's happening here in this room. And we held off on having it until September 5th because we want to make sure that folks are keenly aware that it's coming up. This is a lot of significant changes to our village code, and it is a lot of it is related to vacancy and establishing a vacancy registry and determining what actions might be taken if there is a vacant property that is not being properly maintained. It's been a topic of much discussion, and the board was certainly unanimous in wanting to be able to do something effective, and I feel really pleased with so many of the updates and improvements that we're doing to strengthen this code to allow us to more effectively maintain the village codes for our building properties. So that is September 5th. Will be the public hearing for that. So if you want to come and comment on that, please do. All of these proposed laws, in whatever their current draft form is, are available on the village website. Get my email. I tried to create as many links as I possibly could for you to be able to go directly to the information. But in general, any existing law or proposed legislation is listed on the page for the Corporation Council. Go under Departments, Corporation Council, And then you'll see there's on the left-hand side, there is village legislation. Click on there and you can look at everything from 2018, both the laws that are in place and the ones that are currently being proposed. And we are up to 9, either having been passed or in some draft form or coming up for a public hearing. And would you also like to comment on this, Trustee Earl?
Yes, please, if I may.
course.
I would like for Resolution D, because it's 5 different areas within one area. So if we could do a special e-blast that breaks down exactly what the law is in layman's terms for the average person to know, what are we changing in commercial occupancy, transfer of ownership, just like a bullet point for each. If we could send that out, and even, whether it's a 1-pager, just have it like, somewhere where they could see it, maybe even at the front page, because it's very rare that we have so many upcoming hearings that people just know how to educate themselves before the hearing. Thank you.
That's a good idea, particularly for this one. And as we mentioned in our work session, there are a couple of industries that would want to be particularly aware of this: small business owners, property owners, particularly those with commercial properties or with vacant properties, would want to know, and the real estate industry aware of some of what is included in here. So I like that idea of creating a 1-pager to try and simplify and highlight what these changes are and who might want to come and comment on it and make sure they understand what the proposed change. Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Call for public hearing, proposed local law number 6 of 2018, amending chapter 100 cabarets of the Village of Ossining Code to add a provision for a 1-day cabaret license. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, on August 15th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 6 of 2018, amending chapter 100 cabaret of the Village of Ossining Code. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Trustee Herrera, you want to comment on this? It was your
I mean,
recommendation that we consider this.
it's such an easy policy because we're just giving a business owner another opportunity to have events and live music, and also expand the types of businesses that would host events. So this is a pretty, I think, easy addition to a license, giving our business, our goal is to give the business community as many options as possible, because every business operates very uniquely depending on what they do and what their mission and vision is. So I encourage all those who have any concerns or comments or questions or suggestions on this to please come out on the 15th.
Stuart, let me just clarify. We typically think this would be businesses, but would this be potentially organizations of nonprofit organizations, or is that not relevant to them?
It could be a variety, as long as they are approved. They could, we haven't limited that in that regard.
Okay. Not distinguishing between the two. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Call for public hearing, proposed local law number 7 of 2018, amending chapter 178 noise of the Village of Ossining Code to include restrictions for gas-powered leaf blowers. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, on October 3rd, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law number 7 of 2018, amending chapter 178 noise of the Village of Ossining Code. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think we probably do want to comment on this one and take note, particularly this is the furthest out. This is October 3rd, so we're giving ourselves 2 months in which to do some significant outreach to the community. This proposed change has been of particular concern because of health, safety, environmental concerns and quality of life concerns. So we've had requests for this consideration from a number of individuals and organizations. Similar legislation exists in, I believe, 15 other communities in Westchester County currently, and we borrowed heavily from their experience in drafting our own proposal. That said, it is not uniformly championed by everyone, and so we've been actively communicating with landscapers as well as with Ossining Lawnmower, and the owner of Ossining Lawnmower as well as an individual landscaper attended one of our meetings in July when we delved into this legislation, and they are going to be helping us to do outreach to interested parties in the landscaping industry. And so we look forward to a robust discussion, or at least a robust public hearing with many views being expressed on October 3rd. Meanwhile, we're going to work on making sure that we provide some clear information about what is being proposed in Ossining, and so people can understand how that might affect their business or their home and their property.
Well, so there were a lot of issues, and I know just by the title, this doesn't seem like such a big deal, but there are a lot of issues because it's an industry that also employs a lot of people here in Ossining and nearby communities. So we really do encourage people to participate in the conversation. It's just, it's one of those things that came to us from some of our citizens. It's not something the board, I think, we did discuss it. I think it was discussed at some point. Some legislation comes from the public, some comes from the board, some comes a little bit from both. So it's one of those that we'd like to hear from the public on, because honestly, I'm not an expert in this, so we'd really appreciate emails if you're not able to attend, etc. And it's another one of those where we learn a lot about our environment. And hopefully, I don't know in this case, village manager, if you're reaching out to the stores and giving them information. I don't even know where we left it, or if trustees are supposed to do that, or the mayor. I'm not quite sure when we say we're going to get the word out, what we mean by that.
I'll work with Jamie on some kind of a release, and we'll make sure that the different stores get information on
Okay,
it.
and if there's anything you want us to do, just let us know.
Right, and I think if the businesses then can reach out to their customers, then the word can spread.
Okay, thank you.
Further comment? Madam Clerk?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, call for public hearing proposed local law 8 of 2018, amending chapter 186 parades of the Village of Ossining Code, authorizing the village manager to issue the parade public gathering permit upon the recommendation from the chief of police. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, on August 15th, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 8 of 2018, amending chapter 186 parades of the Village of Ossining Code.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
The tie for the first.
We'll take note. This is the second of 3 that is going to be on for a public hearing in 2 weeks. We don't anticipate it will be terribly controversial. If anything, people will just say, thank you very much for streamlining this process. Currently in our village code, if an organization wants to hold a rally or a public gathering that might involve a PA system or perhaps a street closure, they go through a process of reaching out to the police department and coordinating with either the Parks Department or Public Works, and ultimately the village manager takes a look. And then after all of the folks in the staff weigh in and figure out how this can work effectively in the village without too much disruption and with the support needed, then it comes to us and we vote up or down. We pretty much just do everything that's recommended by the village staff. And it just creates a level of bureaucracy and slows down a process. So this is just streamlining a process to be able to encourage individuals and organizations to be able to gather in our community and be heard or have fun and celebrate. So I am very excited for us to make this change to the code. And it's not often that a group of elected officials try and divest themselves of power, but I'm very pleased to be able to do it. Anyone else want to comment?
I agree. This is just a streamlined process that will continue the internal process of our review, but you no longer have to wait for us to get an answer on your request. So,
Madam Clerk.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Call for public hearing proposed local law number 9 of 2018, amending chapter 75 animals of the Village of Ossining Code to add article 5 tethering. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at the Birdsall Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Austin, New York, on August 15th, 2018, at 7:30 p.m., or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed Local Law 9 of 2018, amending Chapter 75, Animals, of the Village of Austin Code. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to comment a little bit on this, but then largely just on the fact that we are moving forward with 5 pieces of legislation. We are only in month number 8 by 1 day, but that is more than one piece of legislation per month. And I want to give a huge shout out to our Corporation Counsel, Stuart Kahan. He's been with us for less than 2 years, and in that time, he has helped us to move forward so many significant pieces of legislation. I mean, maybe streamlining parades isn't the most significant, but some of this stuff with codes is huge, and really, really helps us to do a better job in serving our community. So, Stuart, kudos to you, in particular with the dog tethering. I know that you have explored existing dog tether laws, both in Westchester County and throughout New York State, and worked to try and find a balanced way of addressing this concern. We will look forward to hearing comments in 2 weeks from community members with a variety of perspectives and concerns. And I thank you particularly for being so highly competent and efficient, thoughtful in all that you have been doing for our legislative. Thank you, sir. And everybody can mark their calendar for November 2nd. It is Love Your Lawyer Day. Go ahead and buy your flowers and candy for Stuart Day. It's November 2nd. November 2nd.
Just remember what Shakespeare said.
What? He said,
First we kill all the lawyers.
that's what he said?
Let's not live in a Shakespearean world then. All right. Does anybody else want to comment on this one?
Yeah, I do. So I think a very good point was brought up about abuse of animals and the tethering laws. For me, and I'm only going to speak for me as a trustee, there are 2 different issues. One were many accusation about, and it is true for many people who do not live in this community, about abuse against a particular animal. It is my belief that everything, and more than everything, was done to make sure that to investigate that situation. And the outcome from my perspective, thanks to our police department and a bunch of organizations, I personally do not find that abuse occurred. That is not to say that that is a direct relation to tethering legislation. You could have legislation about something simply from learning from it. So for me, it's a separate issue of whether or not we should have tethering, and leaving it to the public to have input about that situation does not, for me, imply on any level that there was abuse to a specific dog. To some people that might be connected. To me, they're unconnected. Passing certain legislation is one item. Abuse to an animal was investigated, and that's been brought up. And I see them as, for me at this point, unrelated. So I just wanted to at least speak to that, and whether people from inside the community or outside come in. I'm not a big fan of people from outside this community coming in when they don't do it in their own community. Not a big fan. I don't enjoy it. That is not to say, however, that they're not important pieces of information that people share with us and that we should be listening to, because it's informative, important, and things for us to think about. So I'm looking forward to actually hearing from the public about this issue. That's what public hearings are for.
Anyone else want to comment on this one? All right. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So we have continuing business of the board.
I do not believe we have anything, ma'am. No.
Okay,
Moving
moving
on.
on to new business of the board. First is a resolution authorizing the village manager to sign a license agreement with the County of Westchester regarding a sign located on county property adjacent to Route 9A at the intersection of Route 133 and Croton Avenue. Okay. Whereas the County of Westchester County and the Village of Ossining Village entered into a license agreement effective August 15th, 2013, whereby the county granted to the village a non-exclusive license to use county-owned property located adjacent to Route 9A at the intersection of Route 133 Croton Avenue, licensed premises. And whereas the licensed premises have been used by the village for installation of a welcome to Ossining sign and general maintenance to keep the licensed premises in orderly condition. And whereas the prior agreement has a 5-year term and therefore will expire on August 15th, 2018. And whereas the county and the village wish to enter into a new license agreement for the same location under the same terms as the prior agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that upon review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign the license agreement with the County of Westchester.
So moved.
Do we want to have any discussion on this?
Mayor, we received from the County Parks Department, I think last week, the proposed renewal, which, as it says, expires. This is the sign as if you're basically going onto Route 9A northbound. There's a sign that says, "Welcome to Ossining." That is actually where it is placed, is county property. So they are basically licensing us to allow us to use that property to put the sign, and we maintain the area there. It's a 5-year agreement for $1. So,
Good bargain.
Right. I mean, it's $1 and then our team does the work of maintaining the
Correct.
property.
correct.
But,
It's $1 plus a few dollars.
but it is a gateway into our community, and so I think it's important that we have that sign in place that board 5 years ago. I remember when this started 5 years ago when the sign was put up. So I hadn't thought about it since. I'm glad that it's still there and that we're able to maintain it. I assume for the next 5 years is what we're looking at.
Yes, it'll be another 5-year agreement.
Further comment? Madam Clerk. Oh, is this a resolution? It is, right?
It is a
Okay.
resolution,
It is.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, next, discussion regarding authorizing the village manager to sign a purchase agreement with Premier Fire Apparatus of Hyde Park, New York for the purchase of one 2019 E1 1500 GPM pumper for Ossining Steamer Company.
Mayor, if I might.
Please.
The board may recall that previously there was a bidding process for this. The bid was rejected for various deficiencies. We then were able to determine that this could be done through a purchasing agreement through, I believe it's NJPA. It's contract number 022818. We received the specifications from Premier Fire Apparatus for the E1 fire apparatus that is proposed here for Steamer Company. I reviewed the purchase agreement. There have been some changes made at the request of Corporation Council. The specifications have been corrected to include what we wanted in there and to exclude what was otherwise not necessary with regard to this particular vehicle. So this would be a request to permit the village manager to sign the purchase agreement with Premier. The cost of this vehicle is $672,167.
Trustee Codman, do you want to shed some more light on this for us?
Sure. This is part of an ongoing process of acquiring new fire equipment for the fire department. The current truck is over 20 years old, and it's time to bring on a new vehicle. Oftentimes, the cost to maintain older vehicles is either close or exceeds the amount of money it would take to borrow the money and purchase the new one. The truck committee did a lot of research, and they spent a lot of time making sure that this is a truck that meets the needs of that particular firehouse. And I'm pleased that we were able to get this to a place where we could get a contract that we're comfortable with. Specifically, there are a number of elements within the contract that are in the larger print that provide some better guarantees than we've had in the past from prior purchases. And obviously we're going through a state contract, so that guarantees us the lowest price we can get for the vehicle. So I'm in favor of moving forward in purchasing the vehicle. It's a budgeted item, and I hope my colleagues will support me in this.
Comment on this?
Mayor, I actually have a resolution for tonight if the board wants to entertain it. Just, if they do, just to save us 2 weeks, but I can.
I'm
give
good
it
with
to-
that.
If that's
fine.
okay.
Fine with that?
We've all had an opportunity
I'll
to
give it to
review
the
the contract. Thank you.
Okay, resolution authorizing the village manager to sign a purchase agreement with Premier Fire Apparatus for the purchase of one 2019 1500 GPM pumper for Ossining Seaver Company. Resolved that the following review by the village's corporation council, the village manager is authorized to sign a purchase agreement with Premier Fire Apparatus, Inc., 1564 Route 9G, Hyde Park, New York, 12538, for the purchase of one 2019 1500 GPM pumper for Ossining Seaver Company as described in the proposal and specifications for a purchase price of $672,167. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Good. Madam Clerk?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next, we have visitor recognition.
Would anyone like to comment on anything of general interest?
Okay, never
No one?
mind. So, moving on to the adjournment.
Do we have pause for executive
We
session?
do have executive session for matters of collective bargaining, real estate, and litigation.
All right, we'll be busy. Okay,
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn to executive session for collective bargaining, real estate, and litigation?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you very much for joining us. I will give you a little calendaring update next week, August 8th. We would normally be meeting, but we are not. Enjoy a week off from village board meetings. Debbie looks a little too happy about that, but come back to this room in 2 weeks, and there will be, we'll begin with a public hearing on 3 of the proposed local laws that we discussed this evening. And I look forward to seeing many of you on Friday evening at the firefighters parade. This meeting is adjourned to executive session.